Shana Tova Umetuka. In Jaffa, there is an unassuming restaurant among the palm trees that dot the avenue. It seems at first to be a restaurant like any other, but soon you start to notice differences. In the bar area, a room outside the main floor of tables, a waiter will take your order before you are guided to lockers, where you are asked to leave anything that might create light behind. You are then ushered into the main restaurant floor and you enter darkness. Total darkness. You cannot see a thing. Na Laga'at's Blackout Restaurant is one of 14 restaurants worldwide in which diners eat in total darkness. Guided and served by blind or visually impaired waiters, the experience completely blocks the sense of sight. But through the experience of losing that sense, the other four senses become sharpened. Flavors emerge from the food and wine that are ignored when we eat with our eyes. While the sense of sight is gone, the senses of touch and taste, smell and hearing all become more finely attuned. I've been thinking about Na Laga'at and restaurants like it for some time now. For the year 5780, the Hebrew year that has now passed, presented itself with all the usual hopes and expectations of years gone by. In my life, the years have generally moved according to predictable patterns. We awake to each new day with hope in our hearts at the promise that each sunrise might bring. As the year 5780 began, I know we all had expectations like mine. For parents, we believed that our children would be healthy and attend school, where they would learn from teachers and form friendships. For grandparents who live in a different city, there were planned trips to feel the embrace of the next generations and see a smile and feel an embrace. For young couples who wished to begin a life of togetherness, they planned to dance and celebrate with family and friends as they stepped under the chuppah. Expectations and hopes, promises in a sense, that we held in our hearts and minds as the calendar turned to the new year, in this season just a short year ago. There were other expectations too, simple ones. For our seniors, there were expectations that they would be able to leave their homes or their rooms. For all of us, expectations that our cities would not be broken by the weight of injustice, that our streets would know the sounds of laughter and children and not protests, sirens, and curfews, expectations that the sky would be blue and not red with fire, with the stench of burning forests and homes. We had expectations that we would be physically present with each other at these high holidays. And now as we look to the year 5781, I feel those same expectations, those same hopes as though waiting for the sunrise. But the predictable patterns, the vision of what might come, somehow feel different this year. It feels as though this year I'm walking into the Blackout Restaurant. I'm taking my seat, and without a vision of what's to come, I am waiting to be served. Perhaps you find yourself sitting with me today, all of us in a darkened restaurant, waiting on what might come. In our shared history, we have learned from moments such as these, moments of confusion and darkness. The great Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai in the year 70 faced one of the darkest periods of our history, witnessing the destruction of Jerusalem, the city of peace. It was a destruction that was caused as much by the Romans as it was by the internal strife, enmity, and divisions among the Jewish people. To watch one's home in flames, destroyed from within and without, burned and ruined by sinat chinam, senseless hatred, must have been almost more than one could bear. Yet Rabbi Yochanan carried on. He persisted. Perhaps having looked upon the failures of his society, he thought deeply of the inward world and asked 5 of his most promising students to go out and seek a way of being that is most upright and righteous, to which a person should cling, despite all the brokenness and darkness we might experience. When Rabbi Yochanan's disciples returned, they each brought with them a piece of wisdom that might serve us on this day. Rabbi Yochanan called first upon his student, Rabbi Eliezer, who said, "In order to be upright and righteous, one needs an ayin tova, a good eye." What does this mean, a good eye? This means to look at your fellow human beings with a positive view. It means that there may well be ugliness in the world, but so too there is beauty. When we have a positive presupposition about our friends and neighbors, those we know and those we don't, it can transform the way we approach the world, Imagine, for example, if we could see the world and those that inhabit it through the eyes of God. And if that seems too hard, imagine what it would be like if we tried to cast our sight on every person with the eyes of their parents, to see the inherent dignity in every human being, and to see the world for the potential good that can come. To have a vision of a better world, even when our ancestors wandered in the wilderness for 40 years with steps that took them forward or backwards, they were always walking in the direction that they cast their eyes, a promised land, a promised future, a better world. That is what it means to have a good eye. To have a good eye doesn't necessarily mean to physically see with one's eyes, rather it means to see with one's heart. After hearing the words of Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yochanan nodded his approval and turned to his second student, Rabbi Yehoshua, who said, "In order to be upright and righteous, one needs a chaver tov, a good friend." There are times in every life where we need a good friend. Let us dwell for a minute on the words of the learned sage Carole King, who sang in her timeless song, "You've Got a Friend." When you're down and troubled and you need a helping hand and nothing is going right, close your eyes and think of me, and soon I will be there to brighten up even your darkest nights. This song is so beloved by so many because it speaks to the light that comes amidst the darkness from the glow of friendship. I remember when I first entered young adulthood, one moment I remember distinctly was the first time I sat alone in a restaurant for lunch. I wonder if you experienced a moment like that too. To eat alone the first time. Being alone is sometimes necessary, sometimes sought out, but in moments of darkness, no one wants to be alone. Think for a moment of the restaurant, Na Laga'at. I'm willing to bet that this is not a restaurant where people dine by themselves. Perhaps it is an experience best shared, or perhaps it would be too scary or too lonely to eat there alone. In our darkest moments, life is like that. Darkness can pervade our lives, but when friendships are present, it doesn't feel all that dark. Having heard Rabbi Yehoshua's persuasive statement, Rabbi Yochanan again nodded his approval and turned to his third student, Rabbi Yossi, who said, "In order to be upright and righteous, one needs a good neighbor." John Donne said it best, "No man is an island unto himself." We need each other to transcend the challenges before us. Think again of the restaurant. As you walk into the darkness, you are not alone. You have servers who navigate the sightless world every day. Their special skills and senses help them weave through the darkened restaurant in ways that are beyond most of our ability. The customer is reliant upon their assistance. We all have special skills that, when applied to the world, help others navigate the paths of life. One thing that this pandemic has provided our community is a deeper awareness of how essential each and every person is to the functioning of this grand design we call society. From the grocery store clerk to the truck driver to the nurses to our teachers and our first responders. They may not always get the appreciation they deserve, but I believe our awareness of the functioning of our society has changed. Perhaps now we can appreciate our neighbors. Perhaps now we can show greater appreciation for each other. Hearing the words of Rabbi Yehoshua, Rabbi Yochanan turned his gaze to Rabbi Shimon, a wise and thoughtful student, who said, "In order to be upright and righteous, a person needs to be able to see what is becoming, to act with foresight and understand the consequences of those actions." I imagine his comments might have stung. After all, they had all been witness to the destruction of their homes. They had enough foresight to not be among those who perished, but that was small consolation in becoming a surviving remnant. But even in a world where we cannot predict the future, our actions matter. Even in the face of what might seem like a world ready to overwhelm us, there is no reason for us to feel that our actions are futile. My childhood rabbi of blessed memory was fond of saying, 1 + 1 + 1, we can change the world. It seems like an antiquated idea, but we know that seismic change can come when human beings change the way they see and act. And as a collective, act accordingly. Even if we cannot predict the future, we can act with faith, believing that our actions have meaning. This is what it means to live a life of righteousness. Finally, Rabbi Elazar approached Rabbi Yochanan and said, "In order to be upright and righteous, a person needs a lev tov, a good heart." At that, Rabbi Yochanan smiled and said to them all, I think Rabbi Elazar has the answer. For I see in Rabbi Elazar's answer the words of everyone else's. One thing I know to be true. The members of Congregation Shalom, each of you has a lev tov, a good heart. When we speak of the heart or from the heart, it means that we are speaking of the essence, the heart of the matter, the essence of the matter, or the heart of the person, or the essence of the person. The Hebrew word for heart, lev, is a word that is the end and the beginning of our Torah. For the last letter of the Torah is lamed, and the first is bet or vet, and taken together, those two letters form the word lev. The place that espouses the Torah, that acts out of Torah's morality and instruction, is the synagogue. I believe Congregation Shalom is the heart of our community. Each of the 5 students of Rabbi Yochanan articulated important aspects of living a life of righteousness, to see the positive potential in the world, to find and be a good friend, to live a life in community, to act in the world for its betterment, and to do all of this from our hearts. That is the essence, the heart of who we are together. I've been astounded by our community over the past half year. I've marveled at how the spiritual senses of our congregation have adapted to the unknown. Just as with the absence of vision in a darkened restaurant, our senses have become more finely tuned. Our community has reached inward and outward to be connected with each other and with the world around us. If we could not be physically present with each other, we would find ways to continue to be spiritually present with each other. If we could not physically be in services with each other, then we would find ways to move the sanctuary to our homes, where we could still pray and feel connected. If we felt alone or unable to leave, the astonishing number of you who have volunteered to physically help those in need exceeded the need by tenfold. It has not been perfect or easy. Determining what is safe and navigating unprecedented realities in our national and global community has been difficult, but it has brought forward new creativity and engagement to provide a connectedness that allows us to still march towards the land of our promise. On our ancestors' long march to the promised land, when tired and depleted and sitting in the darkness of those nights in the wilderness, they needed only to gaze upon a rare cactus plant that only grows in that region. This cactus plant is known as the Queen of the Night, for it is among the only plants whose beautiful flower grows and blooms in the darkest part of the evening. Today, we need only look to our heart, to our congregation, to see the flower bloom in the darkness. And so in this year 5781, let us continue together with a positive vision of what might come, with friendship and community to transcend the harshness of any decree, and may the work of our hands and our hearts bring about a better world. We have dined together in the dark. It has been terrible, and it has been beautiful. And now as we stand spiritually together to enter the new year, I am reminded of the verse from our High Holiday Liturgy. May the old year end with all its curses. May the new year begin with all its blessings. And let us say, Amen.